Hi everyone, I'm Johan Black, a housemaster at Framlingham College. We moved here from Johannesburg, South Africa in December 2021. I'm delighted to be part of the podcast episode, talking to some of our pupils about the experiences of the college's South African exchange program. Welcome everyone. Do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
So I'm Joe. I'm at Fram at the minute, and I live in Norwich. And I went to Bishops over the summer.
Johan Black, I'm from Bishops. I live in Cape Town.
Gracie Farber, I go to St Mary's School, I live in Joburg.
Lulu Ford, I go to Fram College and I live in Harleston. And I went to St Mary's over the holidays.
Before we come to hear from you all, we have Nick Gandy, our Director of Sport, also here with us. Nick, could you tell us a little bit about the exchange program?
Well, I joined just over 6 years ago, and it was in place then. I think it was the brainchild of former Senior Deputy Head Susan Vessels, who is a South African Olympian and obviously had really good connections out there, and it was supported by the headmaster at the time. And I just thought, I suppose my first dealing with it was as a rugby coach, having the exchange students for that first autumn term that I was in place, which obviously made a massive difference to our team, gave everyone a real lift. And I think some of the students we've had over here in the time that I've been involved have been outstanding role models and made a real impact on lots of people's lives in lots of different ways. And that's not just on the sports pitch. I think the children who've come here from South Africa have really embraced the different opportunities. They've made a lot of good friends. Their friend network has expanded just beyond their exchange partner, which is exactly how it should be. And the impact they've had on the sports pitches has been great. I mean, I think probably the most successful rugby player that we had was a boy called Connor Evans, who joined us probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And he's now a full-time player over in South Africa, has played for South Africa under 20s and under 18s. A really humble, nice young man who fitted into school life really well. And as I said, made a real impact on those around him, and he really led the team as a player and was well respected by everyone and was one of the leading players on our circuit. So yeah, the experiences that our children have doing lots of different things. I know that boys were bungee jumping and all this sort of thing, and some of the girls won national finals out there in hockey. So just a fantastic program, I think, to be involved with.
And Nick, how many exchange program partners do we work with?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got Bishop, St Mary's, Herschel and Hilton. So 2 boys' schools, 2 girls' schools. I know Miss Cranmer was looking at Kingswood. So with Kingswood, we used to have an exchange with, but their term dates have changed to make it more difficult, unfortunately. It's not impossible, but it was looking, when I was speaking with Kingswood, it was looking very unlikely. But there may be potential there if the dates can be resolved for another boy and girl to travel. But, the schools that we work with, we have good relationships with, and they're some of the, the leading South African schools.
So Gracie and Lulu, St Mary's is a day school.
Well, you do have some boarders, but the majority of day.
And Luan and Joe, Bishops is a boarding and day school.
So Bishops is boarding and day boy. I'm a day boy, but I boarded with Joey when I was there.
Joe, you are a weekly boarder at Framlingham, so boarding life isn't alien to you.
It's a bit different over there though, because the houses, they're like a whole thing. So you eat in the house, you do pretty much everything in the house. There's no main central hotspot, I guess. Most people go back to the houses. They had a cafe, which was nice. Good food there. But no, you spend most of your time in your house.
So my wife and I spent the last 10 years teaching in an all-boys Catholic school in Johannesburg, in what is very much a inner-city school. So it's quite exciting to get out of the rat race and what felt a little bit like a concrete jungle to come to the greenery of Suffolk. Lua and Gracie, how did you feel about coming to the UK and to Framlingham and the differences you have experienced?
I think it's really different. Obviously, boarding, there's more freedom because you can just walk around and it's all very safe and fun, like little town, and obviously co-ed's much more different, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy the difference.
Yeah, I think the academic part, we used to doing 7 subjects, coming here doing A-levels, There's a lot more time on their hands, time to socialise, progress in sport. And it's a lot different being in a small town than in a city with everything around you. It's good, yeah.
Also, obviously not as big because it's in the city, so the space is more cramped. So you don't have like as many fields, and obviously you don't need as many because you don't need to cater for rugby fields, and because obviously an all-girls school. So this ground's much bigger.
Yeah, I think Bishop's grounds is quite bigger than this. We have a lot more fields. It's not as green with the scenery around it, but everything is fenced off, fields. So yeah, pretty much.
And Joe and Lulu, tell me about your thoughts about arriving and living in South Africa.
When we originally left the airport, we were driving through like the sort of more the township areas, so it's slightly different from what I'm used to. And then we got sort of into the more city, and then that was like slightly bigger houses, more sort of, I guess, what we're used to around here. But then everything was like gated and fenced off and stuff. So I mean, that was a bit weird to start with.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember coming and seeing like there's walls around everyone's houses. And when I came back to the UK, I realised what a difference that made. I remember landing in Heathrow and seeing the houses without walls. I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. But yeah, it was very different. I remember going and I just stared out of the window for like most of the car journey because it was like nothing I've ever seen. It was so nice to see something different, especially after COVID. You're stuck in this country, stuck in the same sort of routine. It was quite nice to explore.
And for both of our pupils, because of the way academic year is structured in South Africa, you essentially gave up your summer holidays to take part. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, it sounds so weird, like, to think about it, but I didn't really see it as like going to school. I always thought as it going to South Africa, because in school I didn't have to do any of the homeworks, I didn't have to do any of the tests. In lessons, it wasn't very
You had a whole little
serious.
exchange room.
Yeah, we had this little office thing where we could go, and we had spares because they didn't make us do maths or English, because obviously end of GCSEs we didn't want to do that anymore. So yeah, it was actually, the academic side of it was so relaxed. I literally did nothing.
When I originally got there, I got given a sheet with all the lesson options, and I originally got told to pick 7, which I won't lie, I wasn't very happy about. So I said, can I shorten it down to 3, like the 3 that are based most on my subject in the UK? So they agreed to that. So I got given my own sort of specified timetable, which looked a bit weird compared to everybody else's, because obviously I had like spares and things in it instead. But I just used them to do extra work, and I had a few extra sessions with a few of their rugby skills coaches over there, which was really nice. So yeah, I benefited that way as well. I mean, there was a long weekend while we were there, so we went off to the Cedarburg, which was different. No phone signal at all, so that was a bit weird, but that was really nice. And then we had a trip about towards the end where we sort of went along the south coast. I really enjoyed it. So,
Luan and Gracie, when you go back, it will be the end of the academic year. So how have you been preparing yourself for returning to school for the next academic year?
So I've been told it's your own responsibilities as bishops. So you still have access to all the work, all the technologies and everything. And they just say, keep up, do your best, try do academics there, but don't forget about bishop's work. So they almost leave it up to you to do what you want. So, I'm not excited.
I think it'll be weird. I haven't had to do any prep. And now I'm going to go back and they'll give me homework and work to do. And I can't just say, actually, I'm fine, thanks.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more work in South Africa than back here.
Nick, the process for Framlingham College pupils to apply for an exchange place is quite rigorous and in some cases competitive, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a very competitive process. I mean, some years we'll get more applications than others, but in general, people consider their applications. We ask them questions in interviews around South Africa and what they know about South Africa. Obviously, the political history of the country is such that it makes it a very different country to ours. And actually, last year we had so many good candidates, and also the impact that COVID had on the programme. We decided to expand it slightly so that more people got the opportunity to go. But this year it's gone back to normality, really, with just a limited number of exchanges with our existing partners.
So Lulu, tell me about your experience of the process in practice.
So Mr. Gandy did an assembly for year 11 can't remember when it was, but I think it was like this time of year, a bit later, maybe just after Christmas, about this. And I know a girl called Mimi who went on it previously. She went to St Mary's, and another girl called Emma who went to St Mary's. So I'd seen it on their Instagrams. I'd seen it before, but obviously COVID had stopped it all. But Mr. Gandy did an assembly, and he said, you have to apply. And he sent an email with all the websites to all the different schools. And then you applied, and then I think you had an interview, and then another interview. You had one interview just generally about the exchange and the idea of it, and then one with Miss Vessels at the time about South Africa and the place. That's how I had to do it.
I think for us, I came to like the first day of school, and they said like hockey meeting, and then they said listen for those who play first team in grade 10, so our year, and under 16A, there's a hockey exchange if you would like to go. And then, but they told us that it was much more rushed for us because we got back and they're like, listen, they're coming after half term. So we just had to like sign a form saying like our parents are like, they're okay with us applying. We did like 2 interviews, one group, one individual, and then they just gave us a letter saying, and they spoke to our teachers and stuff.
Joey, you had a slightly different experience.
It was normally meant to be the year below after GCSEs that go. But I'm not really sure why, but I think a few less boys sort of signed up for it. So I got asked to go. I mean, I said yeah. And then I got asked a few questions about what I sort of expected and how I'd keep up with stuff. And then, yeah, next thing I knew, I was getting on the plane at the end of the summer. And I was there. So when I originally got asked, there was just a voice in my head that said go. Because obviously my year, COVID kind of ruined everything, so we had nothing on. And then, I'd found out like a few weeks before that there was a rugby tour going at the end of this year, but because we'd finished our exams, we weren't going on it. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to get to experience it that way. So if I want to go, then now is the best opportunity. So I said yes, pretty much straight away. Then we obviously had to check with my parents to make sure that it was okay. And then once that was sorted, yeah, it was just sorting out paperwork and things.
And Luan, how about you? You had a really strong field at Bishop's.
Yeah, so we had about 90 boys applying on exchange, and I think 8 of us ended up going. So I got the rugby exchange, and then it was like 3 interviews, and then background checks on your academics, what teachers think of you, and your headmaster. So it's quite a process, yeah.
How did you feel when you learned you had gained a place on the program?
Well, a big thing for me is I've always wanted to board, and this has always been like a boarding experience I've kind of like always dreamed of, like pictured in my head. So it was really nice for me to get that experience.
Yeah, so honestly, I came for rugby, and going back, knowing you've had an extra season, playing against the age group above you, it helps a lot knowing that you've been there, played against 18-year-olds, and you're almost ready for the next season coming again.
Yeah, that was the same with like the hockey. So I knew my one was a hockey exchange, and it was just like building confidence with my hockey because they play hockey, or I found it quite different over there. Like they focus on more skills and more different tactics compared to us. But it's quite nice to broaden my horizon in that sort of area. And I definitely help because the skills they focus on are not necessarily the things that we do at school. So it was quite nice to like help that set of skills because I didn't really use them before.
Yeah, well, I was excited and nervous at the same time. I was really looking forward to going, but I'd seen a few videos on YouTube of like South African schoolboy rugby, and I was like in the back of my head, they're absolutely huge. But I mean, when I got to Bishop's, I found out they weren't that much bigger than me, but their skill level is like a lot better. So I spent probably a few weeks sort of in the slightly like sort of more coming off the bench at the end of the games for a bit of experience before I then started starting for the teams and getting my head around it. But yeah, it was really like completely different. It gave me a lot more confidence as well coming back here.
So beyond school life, living in a totally different country, what else did you get up to during your stays?
Well, we went to the farm, which was in
Limpopo,
is that how you say it? And we went with her cousins, so it was the first people I ever met. But they were so nice, so comforting, and there were quad bikes, motorbikes, buckies, and you would go for night drives. That was one of my favourite bits. You go for night drives, and her cousin Rob would always have the flashlight at the front, spotting for animals. And then you come back and you'd all sit around the fire, and because of load shedding, sometimes the oven and stuff wouldn't work, so we'd end up cooking our food around the fire. But it was so nice. It was like, yeah.
No, but the load shedding was very bad. It wasn't like normal.
Yeah, it was. I'd never really done anything like that before. I'd never ridden a motorbike before, never been on a quad bike before. So, yeah.
Over half time I've been to Dublin and then also the Cotswolds in England. Yeah, it's quite. I've been not everywhere, but some places.
Over half time I went to Tenerife and Iceland, and I've obviously been to London and Cambridge and Norwich.
Yeah, so towards the end we went on a sort of trip on the south coast. I went on the tallest bungee jump in the world, which was a bit of an experience, seeing as I'd never done one before. I also went on a few safaris, which was quite nice. And I also got introduced to a braai, which I'd never had before, which is a bit like a barbecue here, but it's like cooked in a big pit and everyone sits around, and it's really nice. So,
What would you say to people thinking about applying for the exchange program?
Just do it.
It's worth it.
Yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, the South Africans are like the nicest people on earth.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I met a rude or horrible South African. They're all like lovely. Like the first classes I went to, everyone was like came up to me, shook my hands, like, "What's your name? Where are you from?" So yeah, I'd say there's nothing to be scared of. Just go straight for it.
No, it's definitely it's like it's a chance you never have again. So take it while you have the opportunity to do it, because you won't regret it.
So Nick, traditionally our exchange program has focused on sport, but they really are a holistic cultural experience, aren't they? Providing our pupils with the opportunity to really experience being a global citizen, living and learning in an entirely different environment.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, our exchange with Bishops has been around rugby. St Mary's has been around hockey, but then our exchanges with Hilton and Herschel, it really is a cultural exchange, and anyone is welcome to apply for that. It might well be that they're sports people, but we would encourage applications from anyone who is interested in applying. And I think if people are, have got questions about the exchange program and things like that, then, they can ask myself, Miss Cranmer, Mr. Hastings, or probably the best people to ask are, the students who are here who have done it before. And I know in the past that's worked really well with just being able to share experiences across year groups and things like that. And, as I mentioned earlier, we've had some exceptional young people come to us from South Africa, but conversely, we've sent them some, very impressive young people, and the feedback that we get from the South African schools as well is that these people are real ambassadors for our school and a real credit to our school.
Thank you to everyone for giving us insight into the wonderful program, which you have all really demonstrated gives those who take part in it some unique experience and opportunities for the real personal development. Thanks for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the episode of Framlingham College in Conversation.